Well, vacant property in Baltimore City is assessed, the value of it is assessed differently than property that has a building or structure. It tends to be undervalued. So why does that matter? Well, that means owners of vacant property pay lower taxes while other home and property owners pay more. The Maryland Department of Assessments and Taxation, or SDAT, is in charge of assessments. A new report by the nonprofit Center for Land Economics tackles this problem. And our media partner, the Baltimore Banner, is tackling that report. Reporter Hallie Miller joins us now. Good to see you again, Hallie. All right, so let's very basically, what are the problems or negative consequences with assessing vacant or empty lots and those with buildings or structures differently?
So the report found that Baltimore chronically has its vacant land undervalued. What this means is that if you have two basically identical pieces of land, one with a building on it, one without, and maybe they're even adjacent to one another, or they're similarly sized or have the same zoning features, one is inherently going to be worth more than the other. And that doesn't really always make sense because the land might be equally, important to the neighborhood. It might be equally accessible to amenities, and yet one is essentially getting taxed at a higher rate. And we hear from city residents all the time about how high their property bills are. And we know that in the past two election cycles, there have been efforts to address this through ballot initiatives that ultimately weren't successful. But this is something that we hear about all the time, that homeowners and residents are really the one with the tax burden here, while people who own land are essentially getting off scot-free in a lot of cases.
And we've been showing some video of a real problem in the city that everybody knows about, which is these vacant homes and empty lots that are just sort of disintegrating. Is that problem impacted by this as well?
So according to the report and some of the folks I've spoken with, essentially what this does is it incentivizes some of these landowners, and some of these folks might not even live in Baltimore or anywhere near it, basically. It incentivizes them to keep holding the land because there's not really a financial incentive for them to do anything with it. Their taxes are lower and their financial burden is lower because the tax value is lower. But obviously, when we talk about vacant properties, a huge portion of that and far more worrisome in a lot of respects is just the volume of vacant land that is sitting untouched in the city. There's far more of it than there are vacant homes.
Yeah. And is the state responding to this problem?
So the same day that this report came out, the State Department of Assessments and Taxation, which is responsible for assessing every piece of property in the state, said that they're aware of the problem. They were already working to address it even before the report came out, and that it was fortuitous timing that the report landed when it did, because they were already prioritizing looking at vacant lots in Baltimore a lot closer than they have been in the past. And they acknowledged that there were discrepancies and that they were aware of those problems. So we'll see if they hold to their word.
All right. Hallie Miller, thank you. And thank you for your good report that's in the Baltimore Banner. And if you'd like to read it and other independent reporting from our media partner, the Baltimore Banner, go to thebaltimorebanner.com.